GT1, GT2, and now GT3 cars racing simultaneously here at Daytona International Speedway's road course. Will Vincent, Dan Blake along for the ride. This is the first ever GT1, GT2, GT3 battle taking place on the racetrack. With the launch of McLaren MP4-12c, we have now got ourselves a complete GT field. And Dan, the excitement's been building over the course of the weeks, and now it is finally here. The GT3 McLaren is, with us on iRacing, and it is absolutely phenomenal.
Indeed, it is really, really good. I think it's going to be a great battle as well between the McLaren and the Ford GT in qualifying. It seems like the times are interlapping quite a bit, so it'll be interesting to see just what happens there. But I think we're with some intriguing racing in this 45-minute race.
592 brake horsepower and around 443 pounds per feet of torque makes this an absolutely amazing GT3 car. Currently working our way through a very short practice session. This will be over in about 2 minutes time. Blake Townend in the number 11 car. We've seen him so much on GlacierTV broadcast in that 11 machine in the Grand Am Premier Series. He is checking out this McLaren here today, and he's working his way into the third and fourth corner of the banking as he is doing some practice laps. He's got himself Mando Palumbo just ahead of him on the racetrack, and I have to say, Dan, quite simply, the GT3s are taken over. You have a look at the grid. There's only 3 GT2 cars. There's only 5 GT1 cars. Everyone else is in battle in the brand new McLaren GT3 machine. So we're going to start running through the grid very quickly. We'll start with the GT1 cars. These are the Corvette C6Rs. We've got, say, 5 drivers: Stefan Overgaard, Jason Brown, Robert DeRouge, Brad Davies, and Darren Jump. They are positioned 1 through 5 on the grid respectively. Then we have 3 GT3 drivers. Just because there's not many of them doesn't mean it's going to be an interesting battle. You've got Eric Verdoff, Jonathan Fuller, and Andy Kerstoffer. 3 drivers who are very accustomed to this GT2 Ford GT car. And then we go to the GT3s, the McLaren MP4-12c, and we have Aleski Aloma, who will be starting this race from the 9th position, the first of the GT3 cars. Alongside him will be Dylan Sharman in the 10th position. Blake Townend, Anthony Waselli, Brian Stotbeck, Paul Ilbrink, Paulo Valente, Yoni Hagner, Joel Jus, Tim Clayton, Andrew Carl, Anthony Untridge, Marin McLaren, Jonas Nakarin, Patrick Gurin, Armando Palumbo, Fernando Benito, Paul Nelson, Rocco Barone, Frederick Follestad, Tom Sullivan, Mark Deleuze, Jason Freer, and Chad Holmes round out your grid of 32 drivers here today. The iRacing.com pace car is situated at the start finish line. He's going to do one lap of the track with these drivers, and then they'll go racing here for 45 minutes around this racetrack. And really, it's going to be an entertaining race, especially when you consider the fact that the slipstream, that draft effect, really does work here at Daytona.
Yeah, it's very good, the draft effect, and also the fact that we now have the rolling starts for the GT Challenge, which is new for this season, should also be very interesting to see what happens in the first corner. It should be a bit less carnage than the standard start round here.
And as we have a brand new GT3 car, we will talk to the first ever GlacierTV pole sitter winner, and that is my good friend Mr. Lesky Loma. Hello, congratulations, pole position, and it's going to be a very entertaining race here today.
Yeah, I hope so.
Qualifying and pole, I think the big thing is that these cars work well on the infield, but more importantly on the oval section of the racetrack, be it through turn 6 and 7 down into the bus stop and then all the way down to turn number 1. The slipstream advantage is going to be big. How are you going to need to defend your position throughout this race, knowing how big that advantage can be for the cars behind you?
It's impossible, so you have to time your last lap position correctly, so you might get the win that way, I guess.
Is that
unless
last
something
lap?
happens that you get away. But
Is that going to be the last lap coming into the bus stop? Is that going to be the last lap coming out of the bus stop that you think is going to be the most important factor?
you can pass when you're coming out of bus stop. I think you can pass before the start and finish line.
And a 45-minute race, you've got 8 GT1 and GT2 drivers to deal with as well. Do you think they're going to factor at all into this battle in the GT3 class?
Well, maybe if we get too close to them.
Well, good luck. So they starting from the 9th position overall, the first of the GT3 drivers. That is Lesky Aloma, and he will be starting this race from the first of the GT3 machines. You see, already the cars working themselves on the back straightaway. You've got yourself Stefano Vingard, Jason Brown, Robert DeRouge, Brad Davies, and Darren Jump. They are your GT1 drivers. They've got themselves about a 5-6 car length gap to the GT2 cars. That is Eric Verdoff, Jonathan Fuller, and Annie Kersoff. And then Lesky Loma has already put about a 20 car length gap between himself and Kerstoffer, just to mean that this start is going to be a lot cleaner. And before we go green, final thoughts, Dan?
I think it's going to be a very, very good race. Also, one to look out for in the McLarens. You've got Frederick Follestad, who hasn't put qualifying time, and we've seen in the Talk Freak Racing Touring Car Championship how quick he can be. So I think his rise through the field will be good. And also, I noticed that there's quite a few drivers from the Tiger Virginia that we covered last weekend as well. So some very established GT racers for this race.
Very established GT racers, and this is going to be a great battle. As say, the first ever race with the GT1, GT2, and GT3 cars all on the same track at the same time. No LMP cars to worry about here today, so it is all down to the brute force, the brute handling of these GT cars, and we are going to have ourselves a great battle. We've got the Corvette C6Rs, we've got the Ford GTs, and then the story of the day is, of course, McLaren MP4-12cs, and we've got ourselves a great battle on our hands. The pace car is about to make that hard left-hand turn down towards pit road. Stefan Ovengard in the GT1 number 24 machine will be starting this race from the pole position. You'll have Jason Brown alongside him. That pace car is now going to make that turn down towards pit roads. Ladies and gentlemen, history in the making here today on Glacier TV. The first ever GT freeway battle. The green flag's in the hand. We are racing here now at Daytona. The GT1s get a good start. The GT2s, now the GT3s get going, and they're going to be working their way down to turn number 1. And look at this already. You've got Dylan Charman on the outside line. He's under pressure from Blake Town, and they're going to be too wide going down into turn number 1, and this is where it filters in so much. Free wide, a little bit of bumping, and Andrew Carl spins that car around, and he's going to be the first victim of the day, as there's another car around, and that is Frederick Forrest's actually got going again, but there was a car backwards, and that is Fernando Bento there, who's backwards, as is Patrick Gurin.
Very eventful start there for our GT3 McLarens.
Yeah, and we've also got one more car actually down and very slow on the racetrack. We'll get an update on who that is. At the GT1 class, it is still Ovengard leading from Brown, from Robert DeRouge, from Brad Davis and Darren Jump. They're your top 5 drivers in the GT1 class. Eric Vadoff and Jonathan Futter and Nick Kersoff, they are running in line. However, Aleski Loma losing the GT3 lead early on to Blake Townend. He's working his way into the banking, first in class, but look at how this drive is going to work. You see Loma there, right on the rear, he's closing up. Now it's going to be a case of defensive driving for Townend to come down this very short straightaway into the bus-stop chicane. Aloma wouldn't want to do anything here. He wants to stay behind, so then he can use that draft advantage on the second part of this bank section of the racetrack. This is turn 3 and 4 of the oval that we're working our way onto now. This is also turn number 12 of the road course, and we're on board with Loma now, and they only call it one corner in the road course. I have no idea why. But you see just how much he closes up as they come down the front straightaway. You also see behind him, under pressure there from Dylan Charman, as they work their way down to turn number 1. This is NASCAR almost here to come past the start finish line. The outside line working for Dylan Charman, who's going to be in the last late breakers, and Dylan Charman is going to try and take that second position away. Aloma holding on, and he just keeps on to that second position. A little bit of a wiggle there from Blake Townend, but it is still Townend from Aloma from Dylan Charman in what is a great three-way battle, as Charman looking down to the insides coming to the International Horseshoe, turn number 3.
And also you got Anthony Rosselli, a established Grand Am racer, trying to join in as well. So that's 4 of our top GT racers in iRacing going hammer and tongs. They all want to win the first McLaren race, and Dylan Charman, Anthony Rosselli, Alexi Loma and Blake Townend all go fighting fierce for this, and I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic race, and it's one that will mark the debut very well for the McLaren.
Yeah, and you see Rosselli there has also got Brian Stodbeck just holding on in that 5th position, and Paul Ilbrink in 6th, Paolo Valente in 7th. Valente is falling off the pace a little bit now. He's just outside that 1 second gap where the draft really proves to be prevalent, so he needs to work with drivers like Joni Hagner and Tim Clayson on this banking to try and get some of that momentum back. Just because you're further back on the racetrack doesn't mean that you can't close down that advantage. You see that Aloma looking down to the outside just a little bit as they come down into the bus-stop chicane. This turn 8, 9, 10 and 11 on the racetrack as they work their way left and right, then right, then left. Once again, back onto the banking, you see that they rejoin the track at the very last moment there as they go into the 31 degrees of banking here at Daytona International Speedway. Check into your GT1 drivers. You've got yourself Ovengard still leading the way. It is as they started in this race. However, I'd say Robert DeRouge actually losing a position there to Brad Davies. He's moved down into the 4th position. The GT2 cars are as they started. Frederick Forrestad has made himself a move, and he's been able to get himself up 1 position, and he's now leading what is the 3rd train on the racetrack. And we've got a P4 battle. This is Anthony Rosselli, so Brian Stodd back there onto the grass, into the wall there, and also Dylan Charman involved in that as well, and that was down into turn number 1. And Dan, that track just narrows down completely, and it just looks as though that Charman on the inside line coming down into the corner had a moment, and his car is now severely damaged.
Yeah, with a new car, they've not really had much time to see what the car does setup-wise or what happens, so unfortunately it's caught Dylan Charman out. And also we were talking about the GT1 earlier, and Brad Davis, it was, and Robert DeRouge made a fantastic move down on the oval section, went underneath him, and now he's putting Jason Brown under pressure as well for 2nd place. So Brad Davis is probably one to watch in GT1.
And we're getting a replay on your screens momentarily, and this will say down into turn number 1 you had Stodback working his way down the inside of Anthony Rosselli, that car getting aero tight on him as he came down into turn number 1. He then spun across the racetrack and caught, so that was Dylan Sherman who then caught Brian Stodbeck in a 2-car incident. Rosselli looking as though he got away without too much damage on that car. He is now up into the 3rd position in that battle, but Aloma and Townend still going at it tete-a-tete as they're working their way back onto the banking once again. Don't forget we're racing for 45 minutes in this race here today, And in the GT1s, it's Stefan Overgaard, Jason Brown and Brad Davies. They're your top three. In the GT2s, Eric Verdorf, Jonathan Fuller and Andy Kersoff. They're your top three. In the GT3s, it is Blake Townend from Alessia Loma, from Anthony Rosselli, who is now your third place driver. And just look at the run that Rosselli is getting on the outside line to come down into turn number one once again. He's going to hold that outside line. He knows that by doing that, you might get a little bit of advantage. He has to tuck back in behind Aloma, but Rosselli really is putting that pressure on Aloma, who in turn is keeping that pressure on Blake Townend in the battle for the GT3 lead. And we have another crash line in turn one.
Valente's one involved, just coming back on the track wheel.
Yeah, and he was the second driver here today to have an incident. He went wide on the exit of turn number one, and he almost had to kind of seesaw the kind of chicane, which is turn 3 and 4 of this racetrack. He got back onto the racetrack, no further damage to his car, but Dylan Sharman once again having a spin down in turn number one. He was trying to work his way on the 31 car there of Tim Clayson's, and he's put himself back into the wall. Dylan Sharman having himself a horrible race here in that Logitech number one car, and Sharman trying to make up these positions once again, but it's not going his way at the moment.
No, also all these little incidents have made the battle for GT3 a 4-car battle really. Townend, Deloma, Rosselli and Ilbrink, but Joni Hagner has found his way past Ilbrink, so they're going down towards the bus stop. Well, he's about to hold it out. He's got Ilbrink on the outside, and Ilbrink's going to take it back around the outside. That's a good battle there between Joni Hagner and Paul Ilbrink.
And what we've seen already is that the car does work on the outside line, especially once you come onto the start-finish line. However, you still have to work for it. It's not a free pass. It's not like DRS or anything. Meanwhile, as Eric Davis is trying to make a move in the GT1 car, he's moved himself up into second position in the GT1 field, and he's made that pass on Jason Brown, moving himself up into that second spot in the GT1 class. And I have to say that Brad Davis in that 18 car is looking very strong at the moment.
Yeah, he is. At the start, he made a couple of positions up from there. I saw them with Robert Deroux, and he just came to see a lot quicker. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do anything about Stefan Overgaard. Now he's got past Jason Brown. Overgaard is a very good driver, but I think Davis might have a chance to get up. We'll see what happens, but I think Brad Davis, if he can get a few laps strung together, might start to pull in that number 24 car.
And to check in on Joni Hagner in the number 5 car, he's currently working in at the 14th position overall. In class, he is working himself in the 6th position, and he was bump drafting Brian Stodbeck there down the oval section of the racetrack down to turn number 1, just trying to push Brian Stodbeck into contention so he can close down on Paul Ilbrink, and in turn is closing down on this 3-car battle for the GT3 lead with Blake Townend, Alessia Loma and Anthony Rosselli. And a little bit of NASCAR coming into play there for the 5-car of Joni Hagner.
Yeah, bump drafting is a very tough skill to learn really. It's just a case of how far can you push it without putting out control, and very skilled driving there from Joni Hagner and also from Brian Stodbeck to know what's going on. So, but the two of them will slowly start catching up to the cars in front if they can carry on at that sort of efficiency.
And the front and the rear of the cars do not line up properly in these GT3 cars, so that's going to make bump drafting a very interesting experience on the racetrack. But Hagner very competent on both road and oval. And we're having a look at Anthony Rosselli in the 4 car. He's currently sat in the 3rd position on the racetrack, and he's working his way once again on the outside line. In fact, he's actually cleared Alessia Loma, so at the line he was up into the 2nd position. Now we'll see whether that will class, and he will just be able to slot in. Anthony Rosselli is now up into the 2nd position, so we have 2 radical drivers now out front, and then Alessia Loma, the My3ID driver, currently running in 3rd in the GT3 battle. And now that Town and Rosselli are working together on the racetrack, perhaps they might try and see if they can pull out a gap here on Loma in the 6th car.
Paul Ilbrink's also catching them up there a bit as well. It was a 3-car battle for a while, but Paul Ilbrink is slowly starting to pull his way back towards the 3 in front of him, so Paul Ilbrink must be a bit of the action too.
And if Ilbrink closes up, that'll be 3 radical drivers versus 1 My3ID driver. And there is so much competition between these 2 teams. The Radicals and the My3ID guys race in the iRacing.com Grand Prix World Championship Series, and of course in the iRacing.com Pro Series Off-Road Racing, which we've brought to you all season long here on GlacierTV. Ilbrink is just outside that draft zone. He needs to really work that infield section if he's going to have a chance of closing that gap. You see there that he's losing ground all the way on the oval, and even though he's got the clean air down into the bus stop chicane, and therefore he should go a little bit faster, he needs to have a couple of good laps if he's going to have the chance there of keeping that fourth position and also closing to the rear of that 3-car train. You see actually that you've got already lap cars coming to play. Marlon D. McLaren and Eunice Lucurian are about to go 1 lap down. Behind them, Yoni Hagner has now been able to get past Brian Stodback in the battle for the 5th position in the GT3 class. Stodback looking as though he's going to try and make a move on the outside lines that come out of turn number 12. This is turn 4 of the oval. As they come down into the tri-oval, we'll see whether Stodback tries to make a move here. He's very close. Looking now to the outside line. Perhaps he's going to try and do the cut under down into turn number 1.
Mazzelli's gone wide well, and that's allowed Alexia Loma the chance to take second place. It's into turn 1. Loma got a good run onto the oval, and they came through. And he's hit somebody.
Yeah,
Mazzelli's been involved in the collision.
Yeah, he got hit there by Marlon. So he came down into the international horseshoe, and it just looked as though Rosselli was working his way on the right-hand side of the racetrack and just locked his car up, under braking just a tiny bit there, and that pushed Marlon de McCullin off the racetrack. And of course, McCullin had a little bit of damage in the first place. I want to see if there's any damage to the car of Rosselli there. Very tough bodywork on these MP4-12Cs, and it looks like there's just a tiny bit to the left-hand side door there, but nothing that will hurt him too much. Rosselli, however, has fallen back, and now he has got Eunice Macarian behind him, and then Paul Ilbrink's actually fallen back in that 4th position. But now you can take Rosselli out of the picture for the time being, at least, as he's about 10 car lengths behind Alessi Loma, and Loma right now needs to charge right up to the rear of Blake Tannen in the 11 car if he's going to have the chance of being able to pull away to make it a 2-car battle in the GT3 field. To run through your field in the GT1, it's Stefan Overgaard still leading the way from Brad Davis.
It's not anymore, it's Brad
not.
Davis.
Yeah,
Brad
Davis got past.
I didn't see what happened there, but Brad Davis has indeed found his way past. So he was 3 seconds behind on a couple laps before. So some great driving from Brad Davis. We've been focusing on a slowdown, and we've been told, for Stefan Overgaard. But Brad Davis, we've been looking at GT3, but Brad Davis really has been on a mission, and now he takes the overall race lead.
And in fact, Davis was able to complete the pass into turn number 1 because Overgaard went wide as they came out of the oval down into turn number 1. The track just funnels down there. You've got to be so assertive on the brakes, and Overgaard just running right a little bit there and lost himself an absolute ton of time. Meanwhile, 3 wide behind him in the GT3 battles, and this just shows how you have to be picture perfect coming into that corner. You slow that car down from about 165 miles an hour down to about 100, and it just shows that these drivers today are really on it.
I think we lost Tim Claesens from the race. He was racing with Joni Hagner, but he seems to have disappeared. So Tim Claesens, who was running in the top, he was running in 16th class, has now disappeared.
Yeah, and I believe he might have actually had an incident there with Marlon McCullin, and it's crashed down into turn number 1. But Tim Claesens was running 7th in class. We'll try and get an update to see what happened to him. He was in the incident there as they were trying to go 3 wide into turn number 1. You get the replay on your screen momentarily. So they were 3 wide pretty much coming into turn number 1. And then Claesens just came across the racetrack just a little bit. At the same time, Marlon McCullin, who car scored 1 lap down, came to the right a little bit, and it's just a 2-car incident there. In fact, I'd say McCullin just moved that car a little bit too far to the right, and that put him it's spinning sideways once again. He's still circulating on the racetrack. However, Claesens is deemed at the moment to be out of the race. Severe suspension damage to him. So in the GT1 class, it is still Brad Davies. He's leading the way. He's taken that race lead now from Stefan Overgaard, who went wide in turn number 1 about a lap and a half ago. Jason Brown is in the 3rd position. Robert DeRouge in 4th. Darren Jump in 5th in the GT1 class. In the GT2 class, it is as they started. Eric Vadoff from Jonathan Fuller from Andy Kerristoff. And these 3 drivers are separated each by about 5 seconds on the racetrack. And then the GT3s, it's Blake Townend from Alessi Loma. These 2 drivers separated by about half a second on the racetrack, and Loma hasn't been more than a second behind since the drop of the green flag. Marcelli in 3rd, trying to close this gap back down. Paul Ilbrink in 4th, and Brian Stodbeck rounding out your top 5. In fact, no, he's been passed through by Joni Hagner. The Hagner now up into the 5th position.
Another driver I mentioned at the start of the race, Frederick Follestad's on a real charge. He's right in the back here with Chad Holmes. He's come around, he's involved in an incident, Frederick Follestad, but at the moment he's giving Chad Holmes all sorts of pressure as they go down now towards the back end section of turns 4 and 5, and Frederick Follestad really putting the pressure on. I think it won't be very long before he goes past Chad Holmes.
And we're looking on board with Frederick Follestad in that 8 car to work their way down into turn number 6. This long 180-degree left-hander way, you end up on the banking. Follestad losing a little bit of time there as they came through turn number 6. He's going to have that work all to do now on the oval section of this racetrack. Turn 7. This is turn number 2 of the oval. This is where things get very fast. They'll bring that car up to about 165, maybe 170 miles an hour. As they come down into the bus stop chicane, you see Follestad there doing 171 miles an hour as he comes down into turn number 8, 9, 10 and 11. This is the bus stop chicane, and we'll get a speed differential at the line. It's Follestad in fact now looking a lot closer. He will try and pull to the outside line as they come onto the banking once again. In fact, there's a car there going very slowly ahead of him. That is Brian Stodback there, who is closing up and being closed up by Chad Holmes as they work their way onto the banking. It's going to be 2 wide at some point. Both of these drivers are going to have to the outside. It's going to be 3 wide perhaps once again there as they come past the start finish line once again. Follestad 170 miles an hour for him. Holmes 170 miles an hour for him. On the outside line, Follestad tries to make the move. He's not going to be able to do it, and in fact he loses the position there also to Brian Stodback, who looks as though Stodback lost the position there with a slowdown penalty for him, but able to stay ahead of Frederick Follestad.
Very good battle, and also battle for the lead in GT3 is really good as well. Alexia Loma is really giving Blake Townend a hard time, and all the time Anthony Roselli is catching them up because they're battling each other, and it's allowing Roselli to get back in it following his earlier mistake.
So we are about 20-ish minutes now into this race, and I have to say that this three-way battle between Frederick Follestad, Brian Stodback and Chad Holmes is still developing on the racetrack. Stodback lost a position there by overshooting the bus stop chicane, having a slowdown penalty. He lost a position to Chad Holmes, was able to stay ahead of Frederick Follestad. They went 3 wide into the tri-oval. However, Stodback was able to keep on to that 7th position in class. And this is going to be now a Stodback to the outside line as they're working away down to the bus stop chicane once again. It is going to be the last of the late break stokers, but Stodback is going to get that pass done. Almost, he just got break a little bit later, but you see that Holmes cutting across him there, 2 wide, and look at this, Stodback's gonna have to slow that car down again, because he completely cut the chicane, and you see he almost actually tried taking out Chad Holmes there. He's gonna be incredibly peeved off, because you see him there, he's falling off the pace now, he's lost position to Dylan Charman. He was almost forced to cut the chicane there, because Holmes left him no room at all.
Very interesting line there from Frederick Follestad as well on the banked oval section. He's right under the yellow line, so that's a very interesting change of line there for Follestad.
Yeah, and Follestad also getting a slowdown penalty. You saw how he was running down on the apron. The reason for that was because of the simple fact that he couldn't take more speed through the corner, and he had to cut the course a little bit as well. 2 wides, they're working their way down into turn number 3, and this is Chad Holmes now with Dylan Sharman under attack to come down to the horseshoe. Bump and run there from Sharman, who wasn't able to get the job done, but he's going to try and do the cutover to come down into turn number 4.
Dylan Sharman's had a great last lap. He's made 2 places already, going past Brian Stodback and Frederick Follestad, and he's going to try and make the move here on Chad Holmes, and I think Sharman should be able to do it, because Sharman is a very, very quick driver, so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes, but I think Sharman's made a mistake. Yeah. He's put it wide, big loss of control there near enough, and that's allowed the other 2 to come straight back, so he's just as he was a lap ago now.
Yeah, and that was out in turn number 5, and it just looked as though Sharman caught the grass a little bit, and that sent his car a little bit loose. So much grip on these GT3 cars. However, you get onto the grass and it all disappears in an instant. And this battle for 6th position is now Chad Holmes and Brian Stodback from Frederick Follestad. Dylan Sharman back down into the 8th position. Very quickly checking in on your leader in the GT3 class. It is Blake Townend, who is still your race leader. He's got Alessi Loma still half a second behind. In 3rd position is Anthony Roselli. However, he is about a second and a half back from Alessi Loma in the battle for the 2nd position. Lap traffic coming into play as well. That's Fernando Bento there, who's just getting overtaken, who's running on the outside line. Currently scored 6 laps down, had some damage to his race car, brought that car back out onto the racetrack. And we've got ourselves about 22 minutes worth of racing still to go. And Aloma is still putting that pressure on Blake Townend in the battle for the GT3 lead.
Indeed he is, and the GT1 battle, go back to that, Brad Davis has managed to pull out a 4.3 second lead over Stefan Overgaard. In the GT2, Eric Weidorf has quite a comprehensive 9-second lead over Jonathan Fuller, so that's the rest of the classes, but GT3 is the main one we're focusing on, and this is going to be a great battle. Blake Townend and Alexia Lema. Lema's tried to get past Townend in the last few laps, but Townend's defending very well, and Alexia's going to have to make a great move to be able to go past Townend.
Checking in very quickly on your GT1 race lead battle, and this was between Brad Davis and Stefan Overgaard. Davis was able to get past, he's now pulled out a 5.5 second gap over the 24 car of Stefan Overgaard in that battle for the first position. Overgaard's car actually looking a little bit loose. He's working his way down into turn number 1 once again. Davis, ever since he was able to take that race lead away, has pulled out a nice advantage, and in fact Overgaard losing time now on the racetrack, and Jason Brown only 3 seconds behind him in what is now the battle for P2 in the GT1 class. The GT2 class still as it stands, Eric Weidorf first, got himself a 4-second gap over Jonathan Fuller, who in turn has got himself about a 5-second gap over Andy Kerrishofer in the 29 car, and they're your 3 GT2 drivers. And then in the GT3 class, it is still Blake Townend from Alessia Loma. Loma is looking very close now as they come onto the back straightaway once again, straight onto the front straightaway, and Aloma's looking to the outside perhaps, might just be staying back behind, trying to figure out where Townend isn't working the racetrack. Meanwhile, Frederick Foddestad is now up into the 6th position. A great move there on the outside of the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, it was a very, very good move. He caught Chad Holmes in the draft perfectly, ducked out to the outside, and by the time he turned in for the bus stop, the car was fully past him. So Frederick Foddestad making full use of the draft, although he's just lost the position there, I think, there. Went a bit wide, and that's the opportunity that Chad Holmes was looking for. But before Foddestad put a dive down the inside, he is going down the inside. Oh, so close to contact, but there is contact there. And Foddestad has put his way through, but there's a bit of contact there.
Yeah, and Holmes looked very wiggly down into turn number 3, the International Horseshoe. We're going to see how that car handles into turn 4, and it is damaged there, damage to Chad Holmes. You see how that car is snapping to the left-hand side. Now they come down to turn number 5, and Foddestad took a big lick there out of Chad Holmes' car as he loses another position. He is not going to be happy there in that 27 car as Foddestad continues on the racetrack. He's under a little bit of pressure when Dylan Sharman in what is not a battle for the P6. You see that Dylan, in fact, Chad Holmes spinning that car, and his race is pretty much over. He'll have to bring that car down on towards the pit road to get himself some repair to his car, and it's going to be hugely, hugely disappointing for him because he's having a great race up until that point. So the battle for P6 is now Frederick Foddestad from Dylan Sharman. Dylan Sharman about 0.7 of a second behind is all working way down into the bus stop chicane. Don't forget you can keep in contact with us on Twitter. Use the hashtag GlacierTV. I'd like to give a shout out to Mr. Jonathan's Cactus. He's watching this race online on GlacierTV.com. And don't forget, if you'd like to have a shout out as well, use the hashtag GlacierTV.
Anthony Rosselli's caught even further up to Alexia Loma and Blake Townend, so we are now back to the 3-car battle for the lead now. Enough Rosselli's putting a few good laps, and he's about half a second, maybe about half a second behind Alexia Loma now.
We've got ourselves less than 20 minutes to go here at Daytona International Speedway's road course. This is the first ever GT1, GT2, GT3 battle going on, and it is so interesting looking at the GT3 drivers who have come out in force, 24 of them on the racetrack. And yes, they're 1 minute 10 seconds behind the race leader, but gripping stuff going on at the moment. Aloma still less than a second behind Blake Townend as they're working their way through turn number 7 once again. Rosselli is actually catching up a little bit. I think give it a couple of laps and Anthony Rosselli might be back in the picture there in the battle for the first 2 positions on the racetrack.
Yeah, definitely could be the case, and I'm just thinking that with the GT1, GT2 and GT3, this McLaren has really brought something new to the GT Challenge. It's absolutely great to see, and iRacing should really be applauded for this. This is a very good addition, and I think the GT Challenge will see a lot more bigger intake because of this. This is proper GT racing.
A big shout out as well to Kimbleton Starch just for being that epic. And I'll tell you what, the epicness on this racetrack continues as Aloma once again looking very strong as they come down into the front straightaway. Once again, Aloma's so close behind now, and we've got a bus stop traffic jam going on at the same time. A proper log jam down there, and this is a huge battle going on between Brad Davies, who's in the GT1 car, is working his way through traffic, but Racco Barone there is all down in the bus stop chicane. This is what happens when you get the GT1, GT2, and the GT3 cars coming together, and it was 3 wide, and the inside line, you just saw the absolute speed advantage there of Brad Davies in the GT1 car.
Yeah, that GT1 really has a bit of a straight line advantage, but in the GT3 battle, Alexia Loma went around the outside of Blake Tannen trying to make a move into International Horseshoe. Didn't quite work out, but he's still right on the bumper as he has been for a very long time now. So Alexi maybe trying to try and force a mistake out of Blake Tannen. He's putting his car in different places to try and make Tannen realise he's there and he wants to go past.
And don't forget, when we talked to Loma in our pre-race show, he said to us that he wanted to make sure he does the move on the last lap. So he's just using the first 43 minutes of this race to try and figure out the right time to set up the bars. In fact, he's looking very close as they come onto the... But he's not actually making the move at all. If you looked at his speed there, he's actually just cruising behind him. He wasn't doing anything about it. And Loma actually was moderating that throttle. He didn't even want to go side by side of Blake Townend, and this could just be Loma waiting for his moment.
Indeed, he's waiting very well for his moment. It's some good driving, good from Alexia Loma. Doesn't want to rush into anything and maybe cause an accident or cause him to lose time. A very calculated drive from Loma. He's going to wait till he makes the move when he knows he can make it without losing as much time as possible.
Going to very quickly check into the GT1 cars, and we've got a battle developing between Robert DeRouge and Darren Jump. This is battle for the 4th and 5th positions on the racetrack, and Robert DeRouge losing a little bit of time to Darren Jump over the previous couple of laps. However, that last time by, it looks as though Darren Jump has lost himself a bit of time himself. Before that though, Darren Jump's last lap was a 1 minute 42.6 compared to a 1 minute 43.9, and for the GT1 cars right now, working their way through the traffic, especially on this oval, you've got to be picture perfect, and it's got to be as epic as Apple Lattice almost. And for DeRouge, he was struggling a little bit there, catching the traffic at the wrong time. Yeah,
so last place you wanted to catch traffic really is in the wrong places. Definitely winning lattice, as we call it in H karts there, definitely good. But back in the battle for GT3, it's still the same 3 drivers, Townend, Loma, Rosselli, and Loma still tucked up behind the back of Blake Townend.
And meanwhile, in the battle for the GT3 P10, we have Mark DeLuca gaining a position into turn number 1. This was over Yael US, and he was able to get himself up into 11th position in class. The battle's going on up and down the field, and I have to say that Yael US wins my award for the most beautiful race car here today. That bright orange and black car really doing the business on the racetrack. But however, he's down into the 12th position, so it just means that luck doesn't always do everything, as we've got ourselves Jason Brown and Andrew Carl battling on the racetrack, and this is just the GT1 over the GT3 car. You're just going to see how he's going to breathe
Alexi's making his move now, Will. He's got down the inside of Blake Tannen on the oval, and he's made his way through. So Alexia Loma, we said he was waiting for the opportunity, and he's taken it quite well there. Very, very well. Can he keep it onto... Yes, he's kept the position well, and this gone a bit wide, Blake Tannen, so this is going to allow Anthony Rosselli maybe a chance to have a move going down into turn 3. I think he's a bit too far back is Anthony Rosselli, but Alexia Loma, we said he was waiting for his opportunity, he found it, took it, and now he's going to try and go off into the distance.
Yeah, and Loma, he moves himself up into 1st position in the GT3 class. However, he has to have a perfect infield section of the racetrack to ensure that Townend isn't going to be too close as coming to the banking once again. Loma making his move with 30 minutes of the race scored complete, 15 minutes left to go, and Townend in that 2nd position now. He's got himself, in fact, the way this has happened now, Rosselli's going to be close enough as they work their way onto the banking once again. And I did talk about the fact that Townend and Rosselli are teammates, so when this comes into picture, they could perhaps both try and work the outside line, and it could be NASCAR all over again. It could be the 2 radical drivers working with my 3ID driver coming to the stripe, and that is going to make things a fascinating last lap.
Yes, it's very good to have one of your teammates with you, because Alexi obviously doesn't have any of his teammates near him, and the fact that the other 2, Blake Townend and Anthony Rosselli, are teammates, could see some team tactics come into play later in this race with the draft, and as you said, Will.
So we have got ourselves less than 15 minutes left to go in the first ever GT1, GT2, GT3 battle here at Daytona International Speedway, live and exclusive on GlacierTV. Wilbins and Dan Blake along for the ride. You see that Townend already looking to the outside line. Anthony Rosselli pointing his car in the same direction to help his teammate. Too wide as they come down into turn number one. Once again, it looks like Townend is going to be able to do the sweep if he can hold it on the outside line. They see him going so wide. Will he be able to get the pass done as they work away into turn two? Not this time, but that is exactly what I was talking about. And Rosselli helping Townend out there to try and get him back into the GT3 lead.
Team tactics, I think, are going to play a big part in the rest of this race, so that's anything to go by. And also, Blake Townend seems a lot less patient than Alexia Lema was behind Blake. If he sees a move, he's going to try and make it from the looks of it.
Yeah, and Townend wants to get back up into the lead of this race. He now knows that he has his teammate, Anthony Rosselli. He can act as his rear gunner. And the aim will be to try and get Townend and Rosselli first and second to make it even harder for Alessio Loma. But this is what happens when you have teams coming into battle in these GT series. And it makes for fascinating driving, especially at a track like this, when you have to really navigate the infield and the outfield sections of two completely different racetracks. And Rosselli actually a little bit further back there as they worked their way into turn number 7. Once again, it is now Loma leading the way in the GT3 class from Blake Townend, from Anthony Rosselli. Paul Ilbrandt and Joni Hagner, they are 4th and 5th in GT3 respectively. You see there, looking down to the inside goes Blake Townend, not going to be quite close enough as they work away into the bus stop chicane. I have to say though, it's not going to be long until Brad Davis in the GT1 car is going to be passing these guys. He is only about 3 seconds back on the racetrack, and the way they're working on the draft already, third of these could be passed by the time they come down into turn number 1. You just see the speed advantage there. Davis already up to 180 miles an hour. Compare that to the 170 miles an hour of the cars ahead of him. Look at him going the outside line, 3 wide, Brad Davis on the outside, and that is a huge advantage there for that GT1 car.
And Blake Townend is a bit closer than he was before, and the distraction maybe if Davis could help him here. The two right going through the corner, but Aloma's managed to hold on to it again, and that could have been interesting with Brad Davis. And also remember, we got another 4 GT1 cars to come through yet maybe, so the GT1 cars, depending on when they catch these GT3 leaders, could actually have quite a big contribution to make to the overall GT3 positions.
Yeah, thankfully for the GT2 and the GT3 drivers, the GT1 cars aren't really battling too much for position. A 5-second gap between Stefan Overgaard and Jason Brown in the 3rd position, and then you've got a further 12-second gap to Robert De Rouge, and now a further 5-second gap to Darren Jump in the 5th spot. So that is going to be very interesting as they come the way through the field. And it's going to be probably about 1 every 2 laps away is at the moment. But Aloma a better run as they come into turn number 7 once again. Townend second in the GT2 class. And it looks as though actually, what is Aloma doing? He's running that car down the inside line. He's almost wanting Townend perhaps to go past. I think he's trying to take the shortest way around the racetrack and trying to break that draft off. And now Loma is thinking strategically to work way down to the bus stop very quickly. GT1, Davis from Overgaard, from Brown, from Rouge, from Jump. GT2, Verdorf from Keresov, from Fuller. GT3, Townend, it is Loma from Townend, from Rosselli, from Ilbrandt, from Hagner. They're your top 5 drivers.
Alexia Lehman's going to have to be careful though about slowdown penalties. He doesn't want to push the limits too far and end up having to let past Townend and Rosselli through a slowdown. So it's good thinking, but you've got to make sure he doesn't overstep the mark. Yeah,
and you see that bump draft engaged for Rosselli. Look at him, and look at what happens when that happens. Townend looking down to the inside. He wasn't going to be close enough. Would be down below the double yellow lines for coming into turn number 1. You got a spin car there that you saw on your screen, and that was Jonathan Fuller in the GT2 car, and he was actually he's 2nd place. He's now lost that to Andy Keresov. Keresov now up into the 2nd position in the GT2 class is Jonathan Fuller, having a difficult day all of a sudden in that number 14 Ford GT car, and he is now down into 3rd and last in class.
And he's also lost overall positions to these GT3 drivers, I think, as well.
Yeah, and we're having a look at the replay of Jonathan Fuller now. I say he's running it himself in the number 14 GT2 car, and it was down into turn number 1. And I think he actually might have got a little bit of a wall there as well. That car just stepped out on him. It's so easy to do. He tried correcting it, then it just spun to the right-hand side. He did actually miss the wall, but he had to allow all those drivers to go past him, had to get that car pointing in the right direction, and he lost himself a good 10 seconds at least there on the racetrack.
Very big blow for Jonathan Fuller. It'd be interesting to see if he's able to catch up to Andy Kutchtov again, but the battle for first in GT3, Blake Townend got a bit behind Alexei Aloma there, but he didn't make the move. It'd be interesting to see if they utilise that bump draft tactic again. The amount of speed that Townend gained at the end of the straight from the bump draft was actually quite phenomenal. He really did gain a lot of time on Alexei Aloma by that little bump draft.
We're having a look on board with Alexei Aloma, and this is his rear onboard camera. You see that Townend once again looking to the outside as they come past the drive. It is going to be a case of who leads at the line. This is what happens when Rosselli starts pushing him. Yeah, he's pushing him past the start-finish line. So Townend technically leads the lap. He's going to try and launch him down into turn number 1. Townend, will he be able to get the job done? His car doesn't work as well on the outside line. Aloma's so good on the inside into turn number 1. Able to keep the position once again. The important factor is, however, with less than 10 minutes of racing to go, Townend knows that all he needs to do is be there at the straight, and he's going to have this win.
That is a very good point, Will. So Rosselli technically could push his teammate Townend to victory, and if I was Alexei Aloma, I would be pretty annoyed at the fact that they've done that, but obviously nothing wrong with it. It's just very frustrating for Aloma, who has not really made much of a mistake at all, to if he gets beaten that way.
Checking in on Raka Barone, he's managed to work his way now into the 6th position in class. He made the move there on Frederick Bonestad down into turn number 1. Barone started this race in all the way down in the 27th position overall, and he's managed to work his way into 6th in class. A great drive by him. Bonestad looking to try and attack him once again as they come into turn number 5 on the racetrack, but this is a great battle between these two drivers. You haven't seen too much of it, unfortunately. Bonestad looking to dummy down the insides to come down into turn number 6, and then he'll see whether he can get that draft as works way into turn number 7 once again.
Second of their GT1 car, Stefan Overgaard, might be coming up to our GT3 leaders, I think, in the next lap or so. He's gone past Paul Ilbrink, so the next cars that he'll be looking to get past are the trio of Townend, Aloma and Rosselli.
So very close to the end now here in the first ever GT1, GT2, GT3 battle here at Daytona International Speedway. Aloma led at the line this time, and Townend there is having to learn the hard way that he's going to have to push all the way. He's actually working that inside line to come out of turn number 2. He's going to perhaps try and see if he can make the move down. He's going to try and make the move down into the International Horseshoe. They're going to be so close, Townend, for the race lead. Well, they almost touch. Townend's going to get a better drive, and he's going to take away that GT3 lead with less than 5 minutes now to go. Townend back into the race lead in the GT3 class.
That was a great move from Townend down into turn 3, but Aloma certainly isn't going up. He's going to try and go round the outside to get a better drive out of the corner. This draft could be quite interesting, and also Anthony Rosselli could do Blake Townend the real favour here by trying to attack Alexei Aloma. So Alexei will have to think about defensive alongside trying to get the lead back. So the 2 compared to 1 could go against Aloma here, big style.
Indeed, and if he tries to work on the outside line, Rosselli might try and put his car down the inside, and Aloma could work his way back down into the 3rd position. So before Aloma thinks about going around the outside, he's going to have to think about himself and his battle with Blake Townend in this battle for the P1 in the GT3 class. So working our way down into the bus stop chicane once again, and I have to say, and this is now going to be the key test. Can Aloma get close enough? And he's probably keeping an eye in his rear view mirror to see exactly where Anthony Rosselli is on the racetrack, because I said, of course, Rosselli and Townend are teammates there, and he sees them making Rosselli go around the long way around. Now with Townend trying to come up to the outside, it's going to be a log jam coming down, and he's down below the double yellow line, and what's this 3 wide into turn number 1? Aloma's going to try and steal it, and he's going to take away the GT3 lead once again. He's better on that inside line. Townend's going to have it all to do. 2 wide still as they come out of turn number 2. But Aloma is just going to take it, but Townend's going to have the line into turn 4. If they know he's not, because Aloma there, able to sneak the pass, and that was cheeky there by the 6th car of Alexei Aloma.
Another crucial thing there, Will, that line that Aloma took there actually had him ahead at the stripe as well. So if it came down to it again where Townend got past, that inside line that Aloma took under the yellow line actually saw him cross the line first. But Aloma showing great brains and awareness to be able to do that move, and he's well deserved got the lead back again.
So in the GT1 battle, it is still leading the way Brad Davis with a 28-second gap over Stefan Overgaard. We haven't talked about Brad Davis at all in this race since he passed Overgaard, but he's pulled out such a huge gap. Overgaard with a 3-second gap to Jason Brown in the battle for the second position, Robert DeRouge in third, and Darren Jump in fifth position. And DeRouge actually coming under a little bit of pressure once again from Darren Jump in this GT1 battle. Eric Verdorf from Andy Kerrisoff from Jonathan Fuller, they are all GT2 drivers, and it is still Aloma leading the way in the GT3 battle. He's been able to take that lead away from Blake Townend. Once again, Rosselli in third, Paul Ilbrink fourth, and Yoni Hagner rounding out your top five. And we've not got ourselves much left time to go here, but to a line, it's going to be Aloma versus Townend. Perhaps, actually, the dark horse we haven't talked about, Rosselli actually could try and make it 3 wide and take the victory for himself.
Stefan Overgaard and Jason Brown could bring themselves into this. Overgaard has gone past them now. Where is Jason Brown? Because he's only 3 seconds behind Overgaard, and you know there's much speed difference here. But Townend's going round the outside of Aloma. He's going to try and make a brave move, but he's gone a bit more wider than usual, and that's allowed Aloma to defend the position. And it's the way as we were. And the question about Jason Brown is just coming out now towards the International Horseshoe, so hopefully he'll be able to catch them onto the oval section. But the Overgaard wasn't a problem. Be interesting to see what Brown does when he goes through them.
Indeed, yeah, and we've not got ourselves much time left for racing. In fact, the timer clock saying that just under 4 minutes to go, so we've got ourselves perhaps 3 laps to do this, and I still think that was starting to start off here.
He's going through again, Will. Great Townend, mate, has gone through. It was going into the turn 5-6 section. I didn't quite see all of it, but I saw the end bit with Townend going down the inside. Loma was on the outside. So once again, the GT3 lead changes, and this is a fantastic way to christen the McLaren with this 3-way battle.
Indeed, yeah, and actually Rosselli got himself a bit of a wiggle there. That might hurt him to be able to help Townend as they're working away onto the banking once again. And it is now Townend from Loma from Rosselli, and you see that the GT1 car is going to have to actually stay in line until they come through the chicane. And this is what happens if you catch the cars at the wrong place. This is Jason Brown, who's actually closing at one point down in the battle for second position in the GT1 field over Stefan Overgaard. He's lost himself a ton of time there, having to wait until they got out of the chicane, the bottom chicane, to make the car start. And Rosselli also slowed down quite a bit as well, and perhaps now he's out of play, but you see that to the outside line goes Zaleski Loma. He won't get the full effect of the drive because the GT1 car is now clear, and in fact he'll probably do more of a favour now for Townend. So working their way down into turn number 1 once again. Aloma on the outside line, and we've seen how good Aloma's car handles, but Townend able to keep the lead, so work their way now down into the International Horseshoe once again. Aloma looking very close. Will he try and put that car down the right hand side? Yes, he's going to do so. It's going to be 2 wide once again. Aloma once again taking the race lead back here in the GT3 battle. And I tell you what, in all of my GT racing, I've never seen as many lead changes here in what this car. You see down the outside there, Townend, what are you doing there? You cannot make a pass on the outside there. But so much great action. Now Townend down to the inside once again, and he's going to take that position back from Zaleski Loma as he went wide a little bit.
Exactly the same move that Townend pulled on the lap before, but Aloma's got the inside as they go on towards the oval, but Townend manages to block him off, but he's gone a bit wider on the entrance to the oval, but I don't think Aloma's quite going to take advantage. But this is absolutely fantastic racing from these two.
Yeah, and we are really winding down the clock here. And Loma is so close to work their way down into the bus stop chicane once again. Could it be what Aloma said at the start of this broadcast? It will come down to where you want to be on the inside as they come down into the bus stop chicane one more time. Aloma is going to make the pass. He's going to complete the pass there. You see Townend letting him pass. He knows he can try and get the advantage back. Aloma going a little bit wide, and this is going to allow Townend to have the outside lines to come back into the banking once again. We've not got ourselves much time left. I tell you what, Aloma and Townend, this is a battle for the ages here. And Aloma has got that car on the inside line. They'll have Anthony Rosselli will Blake Townend to help him on the outside line. Bump drafting him once again as they come down. They're going to be 3 wide. They've got a slow car ahead of him, and that is Paolo Valente. And it's a slingshot. Is it going to be engaged there for Townend? He's not going to need to complete the pass. Will he be able to complete the pass? No, he won't. Aloma still keeps it on the inside line. They touch, and Townend goes a little bit wide there. That is going to allow Rosselli to get past him.
Be interesting to see if Townend repays the favour to Rosselli on the drafting. But then maybe 2 minutes over, Townend's gone off. He's on the grass. Is he going to keep it out of the barrier? I think he's just going to keep it out of the barrier. But unfortunately, that's definitely probably now eliminated Blake Townend from what was a great battle for the lead.
Meanwhile, we've got the P5 vet catching the P4 vet, and this is the battle for, say, the GT1 class, the Corvette C6Rs, and you've got Darren Jump, who's caught up to the rear and is trying to make the pass over Robert DeRouge as they're working their way down into the horseshoe once again. Meanwhile, Brad Davies coming to the start-finish line, and is it going to be the white flag for him? Is he going to win the race this time by looking as though it is going to be so close? The white flag, no, it's not. Davies wins in the GT1 class. In the 18 car, he wins the race, so this is the white flag lap for the rest of the drivers. Overgaard, he's working his way down into the international horseshoe. However, we've got this battle, Aloma, now from Rosali, and these cars, you see that Aloma is trying everything in his power to break the draft. Aloma's got himself a 5-car length advantage in this GT3 battle. Eric Vadoff, just to give you an update on the GT2 car, he's got himself about 3/4 of a lap left to go. We're going to check straight back in with this GT3 battle, and you'll see Aloma, who will move all over the racetrack here in this final lap. Rosali is close, but he's not going to be close enough. He's going to be right up to speed, but he will not be able to take this victory away from Aloma unless something dramatic happens here in the next 200 yards. Aleksey Aloma is going to win the GT3 battle by less than half a second here. Tannen was close, but he faded. He will come home in the 3rd position, and we'll go straight back in to check on Eric Verdorf, working his way down into turn number 7, and he's on the oval now. Half a lap left to go for him.
Also, Robert DeRouge was able to hang on for Darren Jump with a 4th place battle in the Corvette, so very, very close, but he managed to hang on, and Eric Verdorf is coming through now to take the GT2 victory. It's been a good race for Eric.
Yeah, and Eric Vadoff hasn't put a foot wrong in that number 7 car in the TFR machine, and he's got himself, say, a corner left to go here now for him as he's coming down to complete his race. He will take GT2 victory in the number 7 car as he's working his way now down into the tri-oval. Ahead of them, Paul Nelson and Fernando Bento. They're passing to the line. However, Bento wasn't able to do anything on Paul Nelson as they came past the track. Eric Vadoff takes GT2 victory, and with that, Andy Kerristoff is it looks like he's got himself about half a lap left to go. He's so far back now in that GT2 battle, but what a GT3 race, and what a way to christen the launch of the MP4-12c.
That was probably one of the best races in iRacing I've ever seen, between the 3 there of Aleksey Aloma, Anthony Rosselli and Blake Townend. It was non-stop action right from the start now. In the start of the race there was 4 or 5 of them, but a couple of them dropped back, but yeah, it was a really, really good race, and all credit to them all for staying so close without such little contact. Real credit to the drivers and also to the iRacing service.
Yeah, so we'll run through your final race results. We'll start with the GT1 drivers, and Brad Davis, he started this race in the 4th position in class in that GT1. He managed to get past everyone. He got himself to victory lane. 35 seconds the gap between himself and Stefan Overgaard in 2nd. Jason Brown came home 3rd. Robert DeRouge 4th. Darren Jump wasn't able to do anything over Robert DeRouge. He came home in the 5th position in GT1. In GT2, it was Eric Vadoff 1st, Andy Kerristoff 2nd, and Jonathan Fuller rounding out your top 3. And then in the GT3s, it was Aleksey Aloma from Anthony Rosselli, so close up the line, less than half a second between these 2 drivers. Blake Townend 3rd, Paul Ilbrink 4th, Yoni Hagner 5th, Brian Stodbeck 6th, Rocco Barone in 7th, Frederick Vollisad 8th, Dylan Sharman 9th, Mark DeLuce rounding out your top 10. And then Jarl Yees, Patrick Gurman, Paul Nelson, Jason Fryer, Eunice Lecurium, Marlon McCullen, Chad Holmes, Paulo Valente, Fernando Bento and Andrew Cole rounding out your top 20. The rest of the results coming up on your screen momentarily. Wow.
Also, I think something that helped Aloma at the end there was the fact that that Blake Townend dropped back, because if Townend and Rosselli had been together, you can almost bet that they would have bump drafting again. But fantastic win from Aleksey. He didn't put a foot wrong, and he's a very worthy winner of this first McLaren race.
Indeed, and we'd like to welcome into the Glacier TV booth the winner of the first ever GT3 race here on Glacier TV, Mr. Aleksey Aloma. Congratulations. And it was a tough race, but you were able to pull it off at the end.
Yeah, in the beginning I just tried to stay behind Blake and probably save little fuel, because I wasn't sure how many laps it would be in the end, because the Corvette could have gone 1 lap more. But anyway, I was just driving behind him and then passed him and then tried some things how they could work on the last laps.
And we saw that you waited until about half an hour into the race to make the move back on Blake Townend. However, it was very tough between yourself and Townend and Rosselli, mainly because the two radical drivers were working in harmony on that outside line, and Rosselli almost pushing Townend ahead of you on that run down into turn number 1.
Yeah, there was some happening, but I got to go now. Bye-bye. See ya.
And that was Aleski Loma there taking victory, and unfortunately our interview cut short. Is he back?
Yeah. Okay,
Oh, he's
no.
back.
No.
No, he's gone. He's by. And that is Loma, like Loma always is. That's probably the funniest interview I've had in a while. But Dan, driver of the race, go.
So many to choose from. I think Brad Davis did a fantastic run in GT1. You got that right off GT2. But I think just for the pure entertainment factor, the GT3 battle between Loma, Townend, and Rosselli deserves a special mention. I really can't choose a driver of the day. There's so many who we could give it to.
GT1, I'd agree with you. Brad Davis, absolutely dominant. GT2, Eric Vedoff, I'll agree with you. GT3, I'm actually going to go with Rocco Barone. He started that race overall all the way down in the 27th position and ended up coming home 7th in class. So, great drive by him. And unfortunately, that is all we have time for. We have got ourselves one more broadcast, of course, unless the mains decide that we're all supposed to die later on today. We've got ourselves the Lotus 79, the Classic Grand Prix World Championship Series. That will be at Silverstone. Start time for that 4:30 p.m. GMT. The iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing taking a break for the next couple of weeks, as is the 16th Street Racing League. So, from myself, from Dan Blake and Yoni Backman, it is time to say goodnight. Unless the world gets you, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.